Section 4. Gender and biodiversity, climate change, land degradation, international waters and chemicals. Point of reflection. What are some of the gender dimensions in biodiversity, climate change, land degradation, international waters, chemicals and waste? Share 2 examples. The gender and environment nexus. Click on each section to get a quick look at the gender and environment nexus in each priority area. Then take the other 5 area-specific modules, once you have finished this one, to become an expert. Key message: biodiversity. To effectively conserve and sustainably use biodiversity, it is important to recognize the different roles, knowledge, and responsibilities of both men and women in natural resource management. Gender differences and inequalities influence the use and conservation of biological diversity. Due to differences in roles, access and knowledge, women's and men's expressed needs and priorities may be different, and they may not be equally affected by biodiversity loss and changes in management practices. Due to underlying gender inequalities and discrimination, women and girls are often more affected by biodiversity loss and ecosystem degradation than men and boys, which is compounded by a lack of equal decision-making power and representation to enact changes in resource use and management. Addressing these inequalities and discrimination in access, control, and share of benefits from biological diversity requires women's effective engagement in decision-making processes and recognition of their roles, needs, priorities, knowledge and rights. Gender and biodiversity. Biodiversity is life itself. It underpins ecosystem functioning and services essential for human well-being. Gender relations play a key role in determining access to biological resources, their use and their management. Up until now, women are usually as users and caretakers of biological resources for consumption and subsistence needs, including responsibilities in small-scale agriculture. Men are most often responsible for the commercial use of natural resources and tend to play a dominant role in decision-making. Let's click on the plant icon. Women and men have different and complementary knowledge of their environment. Compared with men, women are often able to identify a broader range of plant species. A study in Sierra Leone revealed in a same environment, women could list 31 uses of trees, while men only 8. Let's click on the money icon. Women in households generate about 4 times more income from forest products than men. They participate, however, far less in formal forest governance, such as in forest user groups. Let's click on the Earth icon. In 135 different subsistence-based societies, women collect about 80% of the total wild vegetables used for food. Gender and biodiversity. Case study. Conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity, forests, soil and water to achieve good living in Ecuador. Biodiversity loss in Napo, Ecuador, can be attributed to the degradation of freshwater sources, forests and ecosystems. This has affected local communities, where men and women differ in economic status and environmental knowledge, and women's access to education is limited. Promotion of sustainable resources management and poverty alleviation are viable responses. Action. In the province of Napo, the GEF project on conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity, forests, soil and water to achieve good living, aimed at promoting the conservation and sustainable use of internationally significant biodiversity and at enhancing forest management. The project provided rural communities with opportunities for income generation that also contributed to maintaining and restoring the ecosystem. A social and gender approach was used, offering training and technical assistance in sectors where women are particularly active, for example, in the production of cocoa and Nangila, biotrade and community tourism, to encourage their involvement in planning and decision-making. Impact. This project led to an increase in the production of cocoa and Nangila. The cocoa production has been successful in trapping and isolating 20,000 tons of carbon dioxide. Another positive result has come from the conservation of 1,000 hectares of forest through agreements that assign these forests to be used for community tourism or sustainable biotrade practices. The average income of the 200 producers working in community tourism and sustainable biotrade, out of which 100 were women, increased by 10%. Key message. Let's click on climate change. To effectively adapt to and mitigate climate change and build climate-resilient communities, climate policies and actions must be gender responsive. Women are disproportionately affected by climate change. Climate change and gender inequality are arguably two of the greatest sustainable development challenges of our time. The impacts of climate change, including on access to productive and natural resources, amplify existing gender inequalities. Women's dependence on and unequal access to land, water, and other resources and productive assets, which are compounded by limited mobility and decision-making power in many contexts, mean that they are disproportionately affected by climate change. To keep the global temperature increase to well below 2 degrees centigrade and to effectively adapt to a changed climate, climate policy and action must include the knowledge, experience, and perspectives of both women and men. Gender inequalities and limited decision-making power often prevent women from fully contributing to climate-related planning, policy-making, and implementation. Yet, when women are included in gender-responsive climate policy and action, the outcomes are often more efficient and effective, as well as responsive to different needs and perspectives, and provide broader benefits to communities. Gender and climate change. Climate change cannot be solved through business-as-usual approaches. Gender-responsive climate policy and action create opportunities to cut more emissions and increase innovation in adaptation measures. Promotion of gender equality in the context of climate change is supported by countries through decisions under the UNFCCC and national policies. Let us click to explore key facts of the relationship between gender and climate change. Energy access. A gender-responsive energy project in Laos increased the number of female-headed households with electricity by 43%, nearly twice the rate of increase as compared to other households. Risk. Climate-related natural disasters such as flooding, severe storms and wildfires are happening more frequently or with more intensity. Worldwide, women tend to suffer more from the impacts and fatalities caused by disasters, including climate-related disasters, compared with men. For example, women represented an estimated 61% of fatalities in Myanmar after Cyclone Nargis in 2008, 70% after the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami in Banda Aceh. During the heatwave that affected Europe in 2003, most deaths in France were among elderly women. Economic. Gender inequalities in agriculture cost $100 million a year in Malawi. National policies to reduce inequalities in accessing labour-saving technologies could increase crop yields by 7.3% per year, while also improving climate resilience through increased incomes, better nutrition and health, and boosting national GDP by 1.8%. Migration. The impact of climate change in sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Latin America could lead to 140 million migrants within countries by 2050. Gender and climate change. Case study. Barefoot College, India. Issue. In Rajasthan, many of the villages have limited access to electricity and to viable cooking options. Women in these communities resort to using kerosene and fuel wood that are especially dangerous, as well as being hazardous to the health of their families and the environment. Action. The Barefoot College empowers women as agents of change. Working with local and national organizations, the Barefoot College team collaborates with village elders to ensure community support and select the program participants, often illiterate or semi-literate grandmothers who are very active in their communities. The organization trains these women to become solar engineers and to use solar cookers, solar desalination plants and water heaters. They then go back to their villages and support the installation of solar lamp kits. Each household invests the same amount previously spent on kerosene, candles or batteries in maintaining and upgrading the solar installation. Impact. Once installed, the solar lamps or kits are managed by a committee run by 4 women and 3 men. The women solar engineers receive a monthly salary for reparations. In the last decade, 604 women solar engineers trained by the Barefoot College have electrified 1,083 villages in 63 countries in Latin America, Africa, the Middle East, Asia and the South Pacific Islands, bringing domestic lighting to over 45,000 houses.
Key message: land degradation. To overcome, restore and prevent land degradation, gender inequalities with regards to land rights, control access and participation need to be addressed. Land sustains all life on Earth, but more than a third, 2 billion hectares of land is degraded. The 2030 target of the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD, is for every country to avoid new land degradation and instead recover the nearly 500 million hectares globally that are degraded and can be restored back to health, and switch to sustainable land management practices that do not degrade the land. Women play a central role in the use and care of land. Increasing equitable access to key resources and securing land tenure for women can vastly improve their livelihoods and prevent land degradation. This requires targeted action to build women's capacities to access the resources they need, including secure land tenure, credit and technology to improve their livelihoods, manage land sustainably, and become resilient to drought. Gender and land degradation. Women constitute 43% of the total agricultural labour force in developing countries. Female agriculture landowners as a percentage of all agricultural landowners 2000 to 2012. Latin America and the Caribbean have witnessed considerable progress on issues relating to women's rights to land. Nevertheless, the level of women's land ownership in some of these countries remains negligible, with Ecuador being the noteworthy exception. Land degradation. Today, land degradation impacts more than 1.3 billion people, a large number of whom are women and children. Twice as many women suffer from malnutrition as men, and girls are twice as likely to die from malnutrition as boys. Property rights. In over 100 countries, over half of the major constraints on women's and girls' equal rights to property that existed in the 1960s had been removed by 2010. Agricultural extensions. Women farmers receive only 5% of all agricultural extension services, and only 15% of agricultural extension officers are women. Land ownership. Women tend to own less land than men. In most regions of the world, they are in charge of 20% of farms. In Uganda, while 97% of women have access to land, only 7% actually own it and can access credit. Gender and land degradation. Closing the technology gender gap. Agriculture in Uganda. A case study. Issue. In Uganda, unsustainable land use practices in rural communities can be detrimental to the productivity of the land and subsequently decrease the income of families who own and maintain the land. In this context, local communities need to receive relevant information and education linked to sustainability. In Uganda, women make up the majority of farm group members. Action. The Sustainable Rural Livelihoods Programme, established in 2004 in Uganda's Kamuli district, was designed to improve food security, nutrition and health by employing farmer-to-farmer training. Farmer field schools have proved to be a participatory and effective way of empowering and transferring knowledge to women farmers about crop varieties, livestock management, and pest control technologies. Impact. The program has resulted in increased knowledge and skills among women in improved nutrition, food security, and health. Women have also gained wide respect in their community and become involved in farm groups and marketing associations. Key message: international waters. The sustainable management of transboundary water resources must involve both women and men as key stakeholders and proactively address their needs and interests. Water resources do not follow national borders. As 70% of the earth is composed by oceans and 60% of the land lays on shared basins, several states draw on common water ecosystems. These provide services and resources necessary for human well-being. However, they are often overexploited, polluted, and poorly governed, with severe consequences on people and the environment. Multinational cooperation is needed to ensure the sustainable use of shared water resources. As women and men interact differently with water resources, their equal participation in transboundary water management must be guaranteed and their different needs and interests taken into account. Their complementary knowledge and experience also contribute to preserving international waters. Gender and waters. Case study. The Kura River Project. Water resources management to address the water, energy, food ecosystem security nexus. in Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan. Issue: in Central Asia, the Kura River has its source in the eastern part of Anatolia and moves through 3 different countries, Turkey, Georgia, and Azerbaijan, to reach the Caspian Sea. The river has faced a multiplicity of challenges and damages. For example, changes in hydrological flows, deterioration of water quality, and ecosystem degradation, all exacerbated by climate change. As it struggles to keep up with the natural resource needs of its basin population. Action: the Cura 2 project supports international waters management through transboundary agreed actions and national plans. The initiative adopted a gender mainstreaming policy, which promotes gender mainstreaming throughout the project implementation at all levels, in collaboration with relevant organizations. This policy aims to provide equal opportunity for both women and men to access key information about the water management system and participate in related decision making. Impact: this new project builds on the valuable lessons learned from a previous initiative, Cura 1, which carried out a gender mainstreaming study in the river's basin through interviews, surveys, and group discussions with gender-focused NGOs, water managers, and other project stakeholders. Gender mainstreaming is being prioritized throughout at all levels of implementation, while advancing integrated water resources management to address the water energy food ecosystem security nexus. Key message: chemicals and waste. The disposal of chemicals and waste has negative impacts on women and men as well as natural resources. To properly address the different impacts requires a gender-responsive approach. Gender and chemicals. Let's look at the information section. Chemicals, ranging from medicine to preserve health, to fertilizers and pesticides to increase agricultural productivity, play an important role in human societies today. However, despite their benefits, chemicals can also have severe repercussions if they are not managed properly. In particular, they impact the environment and can have a negative effect on human health and well-being, with pregnant women and infants being the most vulnerable. The harm done by chemicals is also skewed based on socio-economic status of communities, further differentiated by gender. Let's read the testimonial. A testimonial from Carletta Garcia, a Native American woman, on the impacts of uranium mining. We were sitting at lunch, and sometimes the wind was just coming right from the uranium mine, and the dust would settle on our dinner, and we would eat that along with our food. The ladies at that time would dry food and deer meat outside, and all of that would be contaminated, and we ate that. They brought home their laundry, and it was being washed with the family's wash. What people didn't realize is, if their parents worked in the mines, they were bringing the contamination into their homes. Now, we are still fighting the effects of what the mine has left for us. There are a lot of people who are sick, a lot of people dying. I myself have thyroid disease. My mother discovered 2 lumps under her arm. She died from cancer. My husband died 4 years ago from pancreatic cancer. Carletta's home, the Navajo lands in the southwestern region of the United States, once hosted the world's largest open-pit uranium mine. Today, it has over 500 abandoned uranium mines. Let's look at the facts and figures. Pesticides. Around 85% of pesticide applicators on commercial farms and plantations are women, who often work despite being pregnant or breastfeeding. Testicular cancer. Medical data show that there has been a 400% increase in testicular cancer in industrialized countries over the last 50 years. Breast cancer. An increase in the incidence rate of women's breast cancer has been observed at a global level. Medical evidence indicates strong links between breast cancer and exposure to chemicals. Cosmetics. Various chemicals used in the cosmetics industry have been found to be dangerous for human health. A 2004 survey in the United States revealed that women applied daily 12 personal care products consisting of 168 ingredients, while men used only 6 on average, consisting of 85 ingredients. Gender and chemicals. Between 1950 and 2015, global plastics production increased from 1.7 million to 300 million tons. Due to limited data availability, the disease burden associated with exposure to chemicals is currently underestimated. Gender and chemicals. A case study. Women Initiative Gambia, WIG. Issue. The city of Njau in the Gambia faced substantial problems due to inadequate waste management and littering of plastic bags. At the same time, the area was affected by poverty. In particular, women and youth had low income levels. Action. The Njau Recycling and Income Generating Group, NRIGG, started in 1992 with the aim of finding a solution to local waste management issues, while providing new income generation activities. NRIGG has focused on the separation of various forms of waste, the production and selling of specific items, and the training of communities on composting and recycling practices. Women advised other residents, acting as recycling champions. They also received literacy education and health training and were given the option to use a savings account and develop a business plan. Impact. Started by 5 committed individuals, NRIGG is now a community-based organization named Women's Initiative Gambia, WIG. Over 290 women and youths have gained skills in recycling and in environmental protection. The initiative also promotes additional activities and opportunities for both women and men. What is next? Now that we have looked at how different environmental areas have strong differentiated effects on men and women in society, what needs to happen next? The intertwined nature of environmental issues and gender equality illustrates the potential of improving environmental sustainability for the benefit of social well-being. These efforts can go hand in hand. While there is evidence of the importance of considering the gender and environment nexus, data gaps still exist. Therefore, it is also important that gender-responsive monitoring and evaluation strategies are used in policy making, project management and research to close these gaps and to track the progress of the SDGs. Point of reflection. What will you do? Share your thoughts and ideas. Module summary. The relationship between gender and environment is dynamic, complex, and context-specific. Women and men have different social roles and are differently impacted by environmental issues. Women are not only vulnerable, but also important actors of change. Gender mainstreaming is key to achieving gender equality. This contributes to economic growth and a more sustainable future. International law instruments in the area of human rights and sustainable development recognize the importance of gender equality. It is time to act to advance gender equality and women's empowerment, and to harness the opportunities for transformational change so that a shift can be made to create just and sustainable societies.